Thank you very much for coming this morning. My name is John Laredo. I am the director of the Arizona Donor Collaborative and have helped with the Latino voter engagement programs here in Arizona. We'd like to thank you all for coming to this national convening of Latino organizations. Today we have the Latino Victory Foundation, the National Education Association, the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, and the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda, who have sponsored this event to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the passage of Proposition 187 in California. As you all know, Proposition 187 being passed in California was a turning point for Latino political empowerment in California, and it was the catalyst for a dramatic increase in voter registration and ultimately voter participation in California. Here in Arizona, we have a similar situation with the passage of Senate Bill 1070 in 2010. 1070 in 2010, much like California, was the catalyst for organizations, Latino engagement organizations in Arizona, to really get the ball rolling and registering a ton of Latino voters. Since 2010, there has been a dramatic uptick in voter participation. We have signed up 190,000 Latinos on the permanent early voting list. In 2012, Latinos were 16% of the electorate in Arizona, yet they were 18% of the people who actually voted. They actually overperformed. We expect that uptick to continue this year with all of the voter participation programs that are running here in Arizona with One Arizona, the Latino Voter Engagement Table. I would like to introduce first the president of the National Education Association, Lily Escosin Garcia.
Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Yes, I don't know how many of you had time to watch the news last night. My husband lives in Juarez, and it was on the news in Juarez, a debate, a Senate debate between Tom Tillis and Senator Hagan in North Carolina, where Tom Tillis, the Republican, explained why the good senator was responsible for threatening our country with Ebola by not closing the border in Mexico. Okay, let's just take a moment to let that one sink in. It is so clear that even though we are celebrating the 20th anniversary, did I say celebrating? Commemorating the 20th anniversary of this wake-up call of Prop 187 in California, the strategy of those who are fighting immigrants is the same. Their strategy is fear. We'll take whatever issue will make people tremble, and that is their strategy. I was talking with someone who used the term illegal, and I said, whoa, do you understand how offensive that is? He said, well, they're here, and they're illegal. I said, you know what? Bank robbers are illegal, mass murderers. The only infraction of the law, the civil law, where you label someone with this word is if they're here without the proper documents. Why would they use this word? Because the term illegal makes you afraid. When you have things like Prop 87 and again, what's happening here in Arizona, or you can go to Alabama, or you can go to dozens of other states that are throwing out these fearful laws. They want the fear to go both ways. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher in my bones. I taught for 20 years elementary schools. I taught in homeless shelters. I taught in suburbs. And more of my students would come in speaking Spanish. More and more of the communities would be full of this, of my mother's culture. They would come in shy, and they would come in frightened. And it took so little to get them to understand that this was going to be a place that was, all I had to do was say, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? Bienvenidos. And my other students, you know, Jennifer and Jason and Cindy would look up like I was playing a game. But Alfredo and Fabiola would look up like I had called them by name. It was a small thing that let them know that this school was going to be a place of refuge for them. And I knew there were immigration issues in those families. If I had been in Alabama when they passed their bill that, I think it was the Citizen Protection Act or something like that, it was designed to drive a wedge between that trusted, loving relationship between a teacher and a student, so that the families would feel intimidated by sometimes the one place where they could feel really safe, that public school. It was designed to say, you need to turn in any students that you suspect may be undocumented. It was designed to make me afraid of my students and to make those students afraid of me. I am so proud to be president of the National Education Association, because in every single case where these kinds of laws poke out their ugly little hateful heads, my members, my educators, my associations, like the Arizona Education Association here, like the California Teachers Association, like the Alabama Education Association, we have stood up, we have taken them to court, we have taken to the streets. We will protect our students at all costs. They have a strategy, and it's fear. We have a strategy too, and it's hope. It is hope, and it's building bridges, and it's making connections in la comunidad. And it's we will prevail. Hope is stronger than fear. I'm Lily Eskelsen Garcia. I'm a teacher, I'm an NEA teacher, and I am very proud to be a part of this wonderful cause of making sure that all students, all families, and every community is protected, respected, and that that school is tierra sagrada, that is holy ground, and that no one will ever come in and try and separate education from students, from their families. Y mil gracias por esta oportunidad. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily, and thank you to the National Education Association and the Arizona Education Association for your ongoing support for Latino voter engagement programs in Arizona. Next up, we have Andrea Miller, the Executive Director of CAUSA.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I am joining you all the way from Portland, Oregon today. And right now, Latino families are in the electoral battle of our lives as we seek to maintain a law that we passed in the legislature in 2013. In an attempt to peel back pro-immigrant policies, state by state, anti-immigrant efforts have targeted Oregon by referring Oregon's new driver card law for the Oregon voters to decide on the 2014 ballot. This new driver card law, as I mentioned, was passed by the Oregon legislature in 2013 and would allow all Oregon residents, regardless of their citizenship status, the ability to apply for a limited purpose driver card so that they can get their families to church and work and to go to school. As many of us know, many of our Latino families live in mixed immigration status families. About 60% of our Latino families live in mixed immigration status households. This not only impacts undocumented mothers and fathers, it impacts their children, it impacts their families. And that's why CAUSA is so dedicated to passing driver cards for immigrants in Oregon. This will be the first and the only popular vote on the driver license issue. As states continue to pass driver license issues state by state, California just passed a driver card law, and 10 other states have something similar. And now Oregon voters must approve this law with a yes vote, yes on what's known as Measure 88, in order for this to become a reality for our families so that we can carry out the basic needs and the daily things we need to do, like go to the grocery store, buy food, and be mobile. The Yes on Measure 88 campaign that CALSA is very dedicated to, as well as SCIU, AFL-CIO, the Oregon Education Association, and many others, are using this as an opportunity to engage Oregon's emerging Latino electorate. And it's been, we've received a very enthusiastic response from our Latino voters and our Latino community, as well as our progressive community. And as immigration reform continues to stall, it's even more important for the driver card law to pass and for Latino voters to turn out so that we can show our continual growth in electoral power. So I'm here today. I took some time to travel here in the middle of this battle. We're knocking on every door, talking to all the voters to get out the facts. Lily said earlier that our opponents use fear, and that is certainly true in Oregon. I'll tell you, I'm in debate with our opposition, our anti-immigrant group, and it is, they are spreading fear, and our job is to spread the facts. And when people know the facts, they're on our side. So we'll see what the election results are, but for us this is long-term as well, about building Latino power. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Now we'd like to welcome Thomas Saenz, the president of the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Thomas Saenz, President and General Counsel of MALDEF, and MALDEF is pleased to be here today to join in this historic convening to discuss and commemorate Proposition 187 and its catalyst effect on politics in California. To remind those who may not recall, Proposition 187 was the most virulently anti-immigrant law of its day. It was enacted by a majority of California voters in November 1994 and would have basically required teachers, social workers, doctors, nurses, police officers to become mandatory informants to state and federal authorities of anyone who they suspected of being undocumented. Now, MALDEF is proud to have participated in the lawsuit that ultimately struck down the vast majority of Proposition 187, but I give you a sense of what it would have done to understand the fear that it engendered in California. But the reaction to that fear was what John has already described. It catalyzed civic participation of the Latino community at all levels. We saw increases in naturalization, increases in voter registration, increases in voter participation, and community organizing within the Latino community at an unprecedented level, with an impact on the politics of California. 20 years ago, California was in the midst of what would be 16 straight years of conservative gubernatorial leadership. You all know what California is today. It is a dramatically different state, perhaps the most immigrant-friendly state in the country. We're proud of the fact that California a year ago enacted the Historic Trust Act to restrict the requirements that local police turn suspects over to the federal government, reducing cooperation between federal immigration authorities and local law enforcement, and reducing the fear and compromise of public safety that's involved. We're proud of California that this year has enacted legislation to ensure that all professional licenses are available regardless of immigration status to those in the state. Those are just two examples of the more recent pro-immigrant immigration laws in California. It's important to note, as some would assert, that the demographics of California are what resulted in that change, and inevitably it would have come out the way it did. But it's important to remember that 20 years ago, that was far from certain. It was not at all clear that the growth of the Latino community in California would make the kind of political change that we saw. And we're here today to remember that and to recognize that something similar is happening in Arizona as a result of SB 1070 and other laws that the legislature and governor here have enacted. It has catalyzed some tremendous organizing and real progress in the Latino community, as you have heard, and this is what we would expect to see across the country. In essence, this commemoration is both a warning and a promise. It is a warning to those who would continue to purvey these anti-immigrant laws that in fact what they are doing is accelerating a political change that will harm their purported political interests in the long run. In essence, these are boomerang laws. They will come back to hurt those who are promoting them. And it is a promise that the Latino community will react in a positive way to this kind of targeting. We as a community will step forward and accelerate our involvement, accelerate our civic participation to change politics, not just in California, not just in Arizona, but across the country. So MALDEF is pleased to be here this morning together with our partners up front, and I do want to acknowledge another longtime partner who played a role in the fight against Proposition 187 and its reaction, another leader of a national organization, Pablo Alvarado, the executive director of the National Labor Organizing Network, is also here. Thank you, Pablo. But we're here and proud to join in this commemoration, the warning and the promise of Proposition 187 and political change that it catalyzed. Thank you.
Next, please welcome Hector Sanchez, the president of the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda and the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement.
Muchas gracias y buenos días. It's just a great honor to be here in this room in such a unique occasion. This year is unique in a number of different ways. In two positive, very good elements of historical contributions to the advancement of the national agenda of minorities is the commemoration of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. So very important historical pieces of legislation that move us in a positive direction. But it's also, like my colleagues say, a year of anniversary of a horrible piece of legislation, Proposition 187 in California. So convening with important national Latino voices, national Latino organizations, and national structures to come together to Arizona, and the symbolism that is behind coming to Arizona, like Tom said, with SB 1070, a piece of legislation that represents so much from the negative point of view that started a national space for a number of states to create similar anti-immigrant pieces of legislation that are at the same time anti-Latino. This is a space for us to take a step back and reflect on what is the impact that all these horrible pieces of legislation are having in the Latino community. The general conversation about immigration is that it's a national issue, and that is correct. But the conversation about the negative impact that enforcement-only policies have in the nation, that is a Latino issue. As we recently recognized in a report that we put together with ND Long, MALDEF, and NHLA, 97% of all the people deported are Latinos. The quality of life of the Latino community overall is being totally negatively affected. We analyze the long-term impact that it has on poverty, the long-term impact that it has in the quality of education of our children, the long-term impact that it has on our families. And today we know, according to research that we have in LACLA, that Latino workers in the nation, due to all these anti-immigrant pieces of legislation and enforcement-only policies, we are the most vulnerable workers in the nation. We have the highest levels of death and injuries at work, the highest levels of wage theft, and for the case of Latinas, which is the worst case in the nation, they are the most vulnerable. Latinas have the biggest wage theft in the nation. They make almost half of the salary, 55 cents per every dollar. For women, we still have a horrible gap, which is 77 cents. That is the reality of where we are as a community today, and that's why we're here, to really recognize the implications that all these horrible pieces of legislation have in our community, but at the same time to propose and continue organizing. I think a lot of spaces, and the positive news coming out of this conversation is that we have seen fantastic elements of organization that the nation probably hasn't seen since the civil rights movement in the 1960s. People coming together for a cause, people coming together to say enough is enough, people organizing around common issues. When was the last time we had in the nation kids believing in a cause and putting their life on the line saying, I believe in a cause and deport me, but I'm gonna be moving in this direction. And those are beautiful elements of organizing that we've seen in grand part because of these situations happening in the nation. And the response to all these attacks is, with no doubt, civic participation. Now more than ever, the Latino community has to come in record numbers to really show the importance of the Latino vote. At a time when we are under attack, we need to say enough is enough, and we need to select good people to Congress to have better voices overall. And also, all the analysis of public service. Latinos are the most underrepresented group in the three most important tables in the nation. In the federal government, we're the most underrepresented group at 8%. We're one of the most underrepresented groups when it comes to presidential appointments, Only 1 year ago, we didn't have a single Latino in the most important table, which is the presidential cabinet. Today, we've been pushing for 3, and we have 3 Latinos. And the other one is Latinos in politics. We are the most underrepresented group. We don't have enough Latinos running for office, and in the case of Latinas, it's even worse. So it's important for us to come together with all these great national voices, great national infrastructures, to say we recognize the challenges, but we're going to move forward with an agenda, a more aggressive agenda, and an organized agenda for having a better nation, and obviously defend the Latino community. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Please welcome Henry Muñoz III, the co-founder of the Latino Victory Foundation.
I still wonder sometimes what I'm doing or what I've done to be able to stand here at a moment like this with these heroes who have been every day spending their lives to change the condition of our lives and our community, but I'm going to enjoy it. I'm the child of the labor movement and the son of a household during the civil rights moment of the 1960s. And for me, boycotts and protests and picket lines were as common as a piñata at a birthday party. When I was a little boy, my father would come home from his week at work traveling the state of Texas, and he would sit us all down in the den. If I close my eyes, I can still see that den. And he would take out this 16 millimeter projector, and he would show us labor leader training films. Now, I'm sure I'm the only kid on the block who had to sit around watching labor leader training films, but on Friday night, he probably had a little to drink. But I remember the messages of those films. I remember this one film was called The Inheritance, and it was all about the great immigrant culture of the United States and the Italians working in the garment districts of New York and the people working in the steel mills of Pennsylvania for 10 cents a day, and the farm workers who created modern day technological America that we all enjoy. And in that film, it said that freedom and opportunity are not our birthright. They weren't handed to our people on a silver platter. You have to work for them, and you die for them, and you day and night for them. And every single day, you earn them all over again. I believe that it's important to remember, because if you don't know how to move forward. That's what today is about. It's about understanding where you've been so that you can figure out where you're going in the future. The people of Arizona have a historic opportunity. I was asked yesterday, isn't this convening coming too late? I don't think it's coming too late. Look at this right here. Move over, John. Given the shift in the population of the United States, there are only 8 of us who have been elected to statewide office. In Arizona, you have an opportunity to elect number 9. You have an opportunity to elect number 9. There hasn't been a Latino elected to statewide office in Arizona in 4 decades. My time in Arizona, these last couple of days, I haven't found a state that's filled with hate. At every street corner, I see names. The meal I had last night, the people that I've met reflect the blended cultural heritage and the history and the identity that is the great American experience of the 21st century. This isn't a blue issue or a red issue. This is a brown issue. This is a moment not to let anybody, including our own people, tell us not to vote. This is an opportunity to not be afraid of our power. This is an opportunity to recognize that demography is not destiny, that we have to organize ourselves and contribute to ourselves and vote for ourselves. And if we do, this will change. What will happen in Arizona and Texas and Georgia and Florida is what Tom described. Things will change. I am filled with incredible hope for the future of this country because I believe that we have it in ourselves to lead ourselves. That is the intent of the Latino Victory Project. That is the intent of this convening. It is important to these midterm elections in 2014. It is important to this state, and it is important to this nation. Not just today, but in the future, because we are the future. Thank you all for being here.
Please welcome Cristobal Alex, the president of the Latino Victory Foundation.
Thank you. Good morning. We're now going to move into a Q&A. We're going to alternate. We're going to get a question in the room, in person, and we're going to go to the phones. So let me open it up. Who's got the first question?
We're going to give some instructions on the phone.
Great.
Just pause.
Sure.
Okay, and if you are on the phone and would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Again, that is *1.
All right, we're ready. We have a mic too.
Questions?
I guess my question would be, we talk a lot about the 2012 election and how that was a really big indicator of how the Latinos could come out and vote and be represented. Midterms historically aren't as much of a catalyzer for voters because there's no presidential election, it's not as glamorous, I guess. So I guess what issues in these midterm elections are you really hoping will get people to pay attention?
I'm going to have John come up and talk about that in Arizona, and then we'll go to Lily to talk about what's happening on the national level.
In Arizona, we have a unique situation. We did not have an active presidential campaign during 2012 here in Arizona. This year, we have statewide races all hitting at the same time. Because of that, there's more activity here in Arizona than there was in 2012. So from a political activity perspective, there's more going on here right now than there was in 2012. Also, Latino voter engagement organizations are putting more feet on the ground right now. There is more of an effort today than there was in 2012 and more than there was in 2010. So there has been a steady increase in infrastructure building around getting the Latino vote out. So we do not expect that organic drop-off to happen like it typically does in other places. We have more activity going on right now than we've ever had before, and we expect that to be reflected in Latino turnout.
And being a union, the National Education Association is able to take part in politics, make actual recommendations. And most of our organizations up here are informational organizations and can't actually give you a specific recommendation. We're absolutely free to do that, and we do. Because you don't have a presidential race this year, we are looking at governance races. We are looking at legislative races. And we are making things like voter suppression a key issue. That, as they were saying, the boomerang effect, when someone tries to take away your right to vote, your access, when you have the right to vote, it will boomerang. There will be people that will show up simply because they're going to show someone who's trying to take away their right to vote, that they will exercise it. Of course, a very big issue for us is education issues. English language learner issues, bilingual education, but also affordable college. Things that we're looking at the equity issue. So many people have wrapped their entire, on both sides of the aisle, their entire worlds around hitting a cut score on a standardized test. I will give you my standardized test speech another day. It does disproportionately hurt English language learners. It hurts students that don't have the same opportunity to learn. There are people in communities that have so much and other people in communities that have so little. We want to focus on the equity issue. Why is it that all children don't have what they need to succeed in school, including affordable college? So what we're going to be doing is report cards for legislators, for governor's races, for senator and congressional races, and we will be letting people know how folks are treating our minority communities, our most vulnerable, marginalized communities, because those are the students that need so much. And we're making the connection that politics and these politicians are why we have or don't have what you're going to find in a school. And we're going to be reaching out to families, to churches, to civil rights groups, service groups. We know that even though we have 3 million NEA members in virtually every voting district in this country, that we can't do it by ourselves. We have to bring our families, our circle of influence, and the families that we serve. So we'll be giving them the information that they need to make the right choices.
Thank you. Such an important question. I want to just pause for a minute to see if anybody else wants to offer any additional thoughts on that.
I do.
Please. And then we're going to go to the phone.
I think it's important to recognize that as important as 2012 was, and pundits almost universally across the country, of course, acknowledged the impact of the Latino community, that was a story that had occurred in the past as well. The Latino vote was also decisive in 2008. And I note, particularly in regard to this year, that in 2010, if you recall what was happening, there was a wave of Tea Party candidates across the country that were winning. And that wave ended in the West. And it ended in the West because of the Latino vote. So even in 2010, the Latino vote was decisive in determining who would be in charge of the United States Senate, for example, because of the impact on individual senatorial races. So I think that because of the work of folks up here, folks in this room, folks in rooms like this across the country, focusing on the issues, including some of the issues that are on the ballot, like the Oregon measure that you've heard about, there will be a decisive Latino vote impact yet again in 2014.
Thank you. Let's have another question in the room here. We've answered all the questions. That's good. Anybody on the phone with a question?
No, but I think we're going to wrap up and do Spanish language interviews directly following the press conference. So we'll do Spanish questions and Spanish answers.
Great. So if we're wrapping up, let me thank you all for coming out this morning, for folks on the phone here, and join me in congratulating and thanking our wonderful speakers.